This is very near and dear to my heart, sharing my secret weapon I have used for over a decade to help me fine tune my self care to be able to get more margin in my life, and then at the same time, still working on the many tasks on my to do list. I'm sure you can relate, but I'm excited to share this process and how you can get your own system. Hey friend, do the daily demands of life leave you exhausted and burnt out with no time for yourself? Are you feeling alone in your relationship and hopeless of life ever changing? Hey, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Christina, married 18 years to my neurodiverse husband and mom of 3 neurodiverse kids. Welcome to the Neurodiverse Family Life Podcast, where we are reclaiming self-care for moms while still being a loving wife and mother. Get ready to begin your self-care journey. Grab your latte planner as you listen in and take small steps towards a healthier you. Our topic that we're going to be chatting about has been in the works for a couple years. And for those of you on the email list, you have seen a few of these updates. If you are not on the email list, I suggest you look in the show notes, and I have a link there for you to sign up, and you get more details about the projects I'm working on, about daily life, and my ideas sometimes I find for moving through this world with a neurodiverse family. But today, my focus is sharing with you what has been a passion project of mine for many years. Going back to around 2013, when I first began coming home to be with my kids because of their age and their needs. And at this time, I did not know about neurodiversity in my marriage or in my family. All I knew was that my one kiddo was having a meltdown that lasted for 45 minutes, and that child was spinning in a circle. And I mentioned this in previous episodes, but I knew at that moment, looking at this, watching what was happening, unfolding in my family, if I took that trajectory and I carried it out, I couldn't see anything good happening. So I made such a hard decision, major sacrifice on my part, to give up the career that I loved and still love for doing this role as a wife and a mom. During that time period, I began seeing all these struggles and challenges and began thinking of what I could do to help. And before I even had started therapies, before we even had diagnosis, my focus was if I could work hard enough, if I could clean hard enough, if I could keep everything at the optimal level, then the problems will be easier because there won't be frustrations over unable to find things. It would be less clutter to cause sensory overwhelmed. I had all these thoughts, and the more I exerted my energy, the more I became exhausted. And there was this direct relationship. The harder I worked, the less energy that I had. And once we got the diagnosis, as I mentioned in an earlier episode, which I will link, it is in episode 3, where I share the mistakes that I made when I first heard about diagnosis. And one of the major ones was this belief, because I heard it so many times, that if you didn't intervene in your child's life before the age of 8, how drastically their life was going to be impacted. And that was, for some of my kids, they were over the age of 8. And this burning desire, I need to figure this out. I've lost time, and doing every single therapy I could possibly find and get my hands on. And again, there was this, the more I increased my activities and our appointments, the more my physical health began getting tired. And I spoke of this on a podcast with Dr. Stephanie Holmes, shared with her how my husband, he needed quiet to be able to regulate and be able to have, which this is something for many husbands, but he needed it at a much higher degree than the average husband. And that is completely fine. And there are moments when I need it myself too. But that was more of a common thread for him, needing that quiet and needing organization. And my kids, how they process their sensory challenges and needs were very different. They needed to express, whether it was verbally making sounds, maybe there's something became a plane. There was always something becoming a plane or a rocket or different items, and there were sound effects with it, or it was the jumping or the tackling. And you can see if one person, especially a spouse, is preferring quiet and the others in the family have a different sensory profile, there's this boom, this big crash that happens. So, again, I kept trying to find ways to make it work. And you can see I am pushing and stretching myself. And my spouse was not happy about all these appointments going on because for him, he preferred a simpler schedule. And I was caught in the middle. During this time frame, I began looking for planning systems that would help me out. Like, what would help me to, I have so many to-do lists. I mean, can you relate to this? The to-do list of prepping before an appointment, things to bring to the appointment, follow up from that appointment, and then appointments that I need to make, providers I need to figure out, and I need to see if they qualify. And then I have the normal home CEO responsibilities, managing the home, paying the bills. And then along with that was things as a wife, like, okay, when are we going to have a date night? When are we going to have time together? And looking at different books I wanted to read to understand neurodiverse marriage better, all these things. And time for myself, where was that going to fit in? But I knew I needed that. And every single planning system I looked at, it kept seeming so not me, because they were looking at these big rocks, these big goals, and I kept thinking, I'm excited I got a shower. Woohoo! Especially when you have a baby or toddlers, like getting in a shower is amazing because I swear, okay, quick side note here, friends. I swear, at the moment I went into the bathroom, whether to use the restroom or for a shower, it was like anarchy reigned. Like, I'm like, I was in here for 2 minutes. How could you possibly make that much of a mess in 2 minutes? Oh, I love those kids. And it's their creativity. And now I can laugh about it. At the moment, seeing the walls decorated with food was not my favorite. But anyway, back on track again. Finding planner systems that would not make me feel bad, feel guilty that I didn't work harder or do more, especially when you do the neurodiverse family math. If you have one child that has a meltdown that lasts 45 minutes, and if that meltdown causes sensory overwhelm in one or two of your other kids and they have a meltdown, and then your spouse is frustrated that there has been all this happening at the same time, if you do the math, that can be anywhere between 2 hours to 2.5, 3 hours that you are dealing with individual people, helping them, especially when they're younger or if their ability to regulate isn't strong. Now where we're at is completely different. But at that time frame, it was incredibly intensive for me. And I remember looking at a planner and looking at the time blocking, and I thought, well, if I was honest, I would put down so-and-so had a meltdown from 1 to 2. Then I had 15 minutes to clean up. Oh, wait, no, I didn't clean up because, wait, I had to go take care of another meltdown. And that one, then after I got that, I would try to clean up the first situation. And then the third child, anyway, you can see where I'm going here. Like, my time blocking, when I was looking at it, was like, oh, this is awful. Like, I have nothing to write in my planner. I feel like I didn't do anything, yet I'm exhausted because of all that has happened. And then at the end of the day, one of my kids would come up to me, especially when they had the meltdown, they would say, Mama, thank you so much. That was so hard for me. Thank you for being there. And they'd give me this hug. And it was like, oh, my sweet child. Yes, so glad to do it. But if your planning system is looking at all these tasks and looking at focusing on bigger ones, I wasn't there. And you know what? There's moments I am still not there. And that's when I began creating my own system. Like, how can I make progress on my self-care because as time went along, I began having chronic fatigue and other health issues, and it didn't get better. It kept getting worse, and it scared me. Scared me to the point when I was on the couch one day and I thought, I don't know how I can get up and make supper for my kids. How am I going to do this? And that's what gave me this passion, this energy. Like, I got to figure this out. This is too important being a wife and mom for me not to figure this out. And I began creating my own pieces of paper, writing stuff down. Eventually, I got into Adobe InDesign, creating layouts and figuring out what can I do. And one of the things that came up over and over again is that I have so many tasks. I can't ignore that, but I need a system where my self-care is not oh, I'm really tired, my battery's drained, I have to take some time this week. It is a living, breathing activity every week. Some things are daily, but there is something I'm doing every single week that is for my self-care in a couple different areas. As I began journaling and praying and just reading what people said meant as self-care, and I thought about my own needs, I came up with 4 different categories. My mind. I needed to have the ability to give a break to my mind, my emotional health. I also needed to get the ability to challenge my mind, to have something that was interesting, inspiring. So my mind needed both that caring and also that encouragement to think and dream. Then my health. I already mentioned about the challenges with my health. Physical health, my diet, exercising, all of that. That was another category because they all roll into each other, don't they? Third was my community. It took me a while to find the right word, but community was people who knew exactly what my challenges were. And when I shared with them what was happening, I didn't have to give a humongous explanation. They knew it, they understood it, and they were empathetic and supportive. And some of these people I have never met in person. They are people who I've met through different groups, but they had similar situations. And knowing that you are not alone in a moment is so powerful. This is why I'm creating this system, even though it scares me so much. It scares me to jump up and take this leap. But I know what it's meant to me to realize I need to develop my own community, my own support system, friendships. And then finally, enjoy. Something for me to enjoy is for the pure pleasure of that. And that really translates into hobbies. But it can be, enjoy can be anything from you're getting your favorite iced latte and you are going to just sit down and do nothing but sip, drink, and just maybe it's people watch, maybe it's outdoors watching nature, but that's all you're going to do. You're just going to enjoy it. Maybe it's your gardening, or if you're like me and you love paper, you're doing time in your planner, or maybe it's scrapbooking, possibly it's hiking or different water sports. You're finding ways to spend time in what you enjoy, those hobbies. When I began, every week, my goal was to find 5 to 10 minutes in each of those categories. I started that small, friends, like that tiny of increment of 10 minutes. Sometimes it was 5 minutes. I just spent a little bit of time. And the interesting thing with this system, you have spaces to write down areas you want to work in with as a wife, or maybe you are engaged, or maybe you're not married, but you have a significant relationship that you invest time in. There's a spot for that, for family, for your kids, or maybe for you as extended family, your family origin, for your work, or maybe it's your ministry or where you volunteer. And then also looking at home, which includes finances. There's spots all for that every week you can work on. But I found I would write down something I wanted to move forward on. And there's a planning process at the beginning of the planner you get to utilize to help you figure out this big picture of what you want to focus on. But I spent like 15 minutes here. I time blocked it using this planning system of when I would take care of my physical health, my mind, how I could develop community, and doing the things that I enjoyed. And some weeks I would have 3 or 4 weeks where a specific item did not happen. And I saw that repeatedly. And something in me clicked like, Christina, why are you not spending these 15 minutes once a week on this area? And what happened was I naturally began changing my actions. It helped me to stop over functioning. I began changing which physical therapy appointments or occupational therapy, all the different ones that are out there. I began assessing what really is the best thing. And sometimes I realized it's not all the same type of therapy for the kids. They each had different ones. And I began making adjustments. I began looking at the skills my kids needed to have for them to be able to have whatever their fullest life would be, and began working on that and began that training process. And slowly I began delegating some activities that I was doing onto them, and that responsibility and the natural consequences when they don't do that laundry. And as I took these small steps week after week, I began seeing a change in myself. My mind, I no longer felt like there were bats flying around, all these thoughts of like what I should do and shouldn't do. If I don't do this, there's going to be anger, frustration. But if I do this and so on, like all those different conversations you can have with yourself, second guessing what's the right response. I began having a peaceful mind as I began saying no to certain activities and yes to others. And it was a beautiful process, and still I'm very much in process, but I have used this system for many years. And that is the only reason why I'm able to even to do this podcast. This is way beyond me. But every week I'd write down something about this podcast because I knew my heart, remembering back how much I had hurt, especially during the early years, how much. And I would love to have someone to listen to empathize, to hear their wisdom and experiences. And I want to give back because I have been given to so much. So this planning system is called the Joy Planner System. Joy stands for Journey of You. This is all about the journey of you. You becoming the woman that you have wanted to be, or maybe you were before, but all the life challenges has diminished it. And yes, you can track all of your different to-dos and tasks, but also the main purpose though is for your self-care. And because it's all built in one system, it's not a separate planner, it's all together. And you begin seeing areas that you are doing too much. A great example I like to use often is dropping off dry cleaning or library books for a spouse. That is a task. If someone is driving, they are able to do that. Now, is it possible that if it's in the front seat next to them and they have a frustrating drive home, they may forget it? Yep. But that is part of their learning process, figuring out how do I remember to get this dry cleaning? Passing off those small things. Again, how long does it take to drop off dry cleaning? Not very long, depending how far out of the way you have to drive. Dropping off library books does not take a long time. It's just driving. But when you begin passing over tasks that you've been doing for others, which they can do, and you begin instead doing tasks for yourself, a beautiful change happens. And I know, like, we do these things because we love our family, right? We want to be serving and caring. But when that serving and caring is hurting us, when it's preventing us from doing basic tasks for ourselves, then we need to begin relooking at it. So this planner will help you begin slowly making changes. And that's what I really like about it, is that every time I go through a new year with this planner, I discover areas where I am weak in and areas I have grown in. And I love saying, oh my gosh, last year, and there's a rating system in the beginning where you get to journal a little bit in each of these categories that I mentioned in your life roles and in your life care or self-care. And I will see like, wow, like last year, I really thought my health was like down in the pits. And now I'm putting up like at a 5 or 6. Like, that's amazing. And with the home, I might say, well, before I was doing really well, but now I'm doing at like maybe a 2 or 3. My point is that you get to see these changes using this planner system, and there's quarterly check-ins, which I really enjoy because I feel like it can be hard slowing down from the speed of light that I feel like neurodiverse families can live, even though we can't have crazy schedules. But because we are going from one thing to the next, as in we know a transition is about to come up, so we're foreshadowing to others about that transition, and we're trying to think through all the potential challenges that could come up and what we need to prepare for. And do we have, if we're going to a dentist appointment, do we have the sunglasses and the weighted blanket and the special toothpaste? So even though it's not fast paced as other families, there's always this constant action and the opportunity to stop, pause, reflect on how we're doing in our self-care, in our life care, and how we're doing as a wife and mom. Are we enabling people that we shouldn't be enabling? Are we avoiding certain areas of our life care because we really don't want to look underneath the hood and see how bad, we don't want to admit how bad something is? These quarterly check-ins are those honest moments we get with ourselves to pause and look and say, okay, this is good and this is not good. So I need to begin deciding what I'm going to do about it. And again, all these small changes, they add up. I am a testimony of how it has added up over time for me. And I am so excited for others to be part of this as well. I am doing a Kickstarter to fund this project because I've already spent my own personal funds in developing the prototype and getting all the different kinks worked out. But the purchasing of it, the actual production of it, is bigger than my budget can handle. So I am doing a Kickstarter, and I will have a link in the show notes on where you can sign up and then be notified immediately when I launch. I will be launching in July. And this would be a tremendous help. Even if you're thinking, Christina, I don't think I can buy this right now. If you could just sign up for that Kickstarter, that would be amazing, because that will tell Kickstarter, hey, people are noticing this project and they're interested. That would mean so much to me. So I will have that in the show notes. That will be launching in July. It will be delivered to you in December because it does take a process to develop and make, but the goal is that it would be in your hands in time for the New Year planning. And I can't wait to show you more, but you can click on the link to see the images of it. Basic images, and I am super excited for this to get into your hands, or pass this episode on to another friend. This planner is meant for anyone who is a caregiver, anyone who has complex life, they're dealing with autoimmune, chronic health issues, even a woman whose spouse is dealing with addiction. This planner is meant for them. This is not the planner meant for everyday person. This is people who are dealing with some really heavy issues and are wanting to still care for the people they love, but also take care of themselves. Thank you again for listening about this project of mine, and I look forward to sharing more with you about this. Hey, thank you for joining me today. I pray this episode gave you encouragement to take one small step. If so, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to help other women find this show. By the way, if you're loving this conversation and want more encouragement like this, join my email list at bit.ly/myselfcare. That is bit.ly/myselfcare. I have a planner launching soon that will help you put all this into action in your own life. I look forward to chatting with you again next week for another episode.